Marcel, what's going on? I had a mild bout of food poisoning, so I might do a short press conference today. I don't think I'm in the mood to talk for very long. So today is Thanksgiving Day, and I know a lot of people, particularly in the United States of America, they follow us here in Guyana. So I want to wish them all the best for an enjoyable Thanksgiving Day. The last week has seen the issues in the news dominated by the opposition's shrill and fake positions on GCOM and elections. They continue to spread falsehoods about the registration process, the quality of the list, the system in place for the conduct of elections. They even go to the extent of criticizing officers of GCOM in a very personal way, and without a shred of evidence. But somehow in their minds, I think if they believe that if they create a deluge of falsehoods and noise surrounding the ability of GCOM to conduct free and fair elections, that it will enhance their electoral fortunes. And they are aware, maybe painfully so, of the impending defeat at the polls. They are painfully aware of this. And therefore, as I said before, they've started to come up with the usual excuses. From the time 1992, the return of democracy to Guyana, they have been at this. Always complain they've been cheated because of the list, because of some voter impersonation, because of some ID card issues, and they have not been able to provide a shred of evidence. Just imagine if you had all of this evidence of voters impersonation and all of the things that went wrong in 2020. You should have been able to present this to the public and to the courts of the country in an election petition. The election petition that they filed after the last election, they was bare bone, and it was also so frivolous that it's laughable to anyone who seriously follows these issues. So if they had all of this evidence, they would make it public. They can still choose to do so now, to make it public even at this late stage. Their SOPs they can make public now, which show that they won the elections as they claim, and also all of the things that they thought went wrong in the 2020 elections. But please note that it was the same voters list, it was the same procedure that we followed in 2015 when they won, and they didn't complain about that. And someone needs to school these people, as GCOM has been doing. And I must commend GCOM for this. They've been pointing out the laws governing their action, that it's not they can't act capriciously based on the whims and fancies of political parties. They have to follow the law and the Constitution of Guyana as they relate to elections. And they have been remaining steadfast in following those those pieces of legislation. So this is something that we need to talk a bit more about. Every single week, they urge GCOM to do things that are unconstitutional and illegal. Every single week. And they make it sound as though it is, GCOM is not doing this because they have a sinister motive. So I hope that the people who are informed don't fall prey to this issue again and about the lies that they are peddling. And as I said before, there are a few people in the country, and the numbers are diminishing, who still will drink the Kool-Aid. They will drink the Kool-Aid, whatever they tell them. But thankfully, the numbers are diminishing because they've lied so much to their supporters that people hardly believe them. So this is important. And whilst we're talking about believability, I still hope that I've seen the rumors again resurface that when the media meets Nigel Hughes and the AFC, that they will ask him about the 1,200 persons that he said disappeared, Afro-Guyanese men who disappeared under the PPP, a blatant lie, but he has peddled that once again in 2024, a lie that he and others of his ilk carried on for many, many years to keep people away from us, saying that we were targeting young black men. And he has repeated that lie again. I pointed out about the Starbuck News article, and so I hope that he's confronted with the article because he's prone to stretch the truth, Nigel Hughes, and in a very dishonest manner. And he should be given an opportunity by the media to clarify it and say where he got that figure from. So I hope the next time he surfaces at the press conference, I noticed they have now been hiding from their press conferences. Like how routinely we have a Thursday press conference, whether there is a tough issue in the media or an easy week for us. We come out routinely. We deal with people directly, like the media is here. They give links that are fake. They sometimes live stream things after the press conference to avoid questions. They hide from the media all the time, and they carry the whole party to those media excursions that they have. And so that format doesn't allow them to be put under a lot of pressure to be asked pointed questions. So I hope that the media will take the next opportunity to address that, because I notice they're hiding from that issue. And since I'm on Nigel Hughes, he's also hiding from the issue of what is an absolute majority and a simple majority. I think by now a child knows this. This morning in court, he tried to relitigate the issue that was settled at the CCJ, claiming that 34 basically is the majority of 65, which the CCJ has ruled on already. He's still stuck in that time warp and doesn't understand. Last week when I spoke, he hurriedly put out something to say, oh, what if 65 members? I explained that a simple majority is a majority of the members present at that sitting. So if 50 were to show up, then 26 would be the majority. So you can pass a law. If the same 50 were to show up for a no confidence motion, you can't pass the no confidence motion with 26 votes. You have to get 33 of the 50 to pass the no confidence motion, because it's a majority of all of the elected members of the National Assembly. That's the difference between a simple majority and an absolute majority. So he put a post out saying, oh, what if 65 members show up in the day? Well, the simple majority will be the same as the absolute majority for that period, for that anomaly. But it doesn't change the definition of a simple versus an absolute majority. Childish and very, very, I don't think it's, I don't want to be too harsh with my words, but really for someone to persist in making this sort of argument when the CCJ has ruled, when a child can understand the logic of it, it just shows you how far divorced they are from reality. So every week they and APNU will come out again, once again, about what they will do in government. Oh, they will give everybody everything in government, but they're running away from their track record of the 5 years when they were there. In fact, they're glorifying that track record, the 5 years, that they did such great things for our country because they clear some bushes in my village in Unity. They clear some bushes there, or one of them made a trip into the interior to hand out some kites. That is what they're putting out as a list of achievements that they had in the 5 years. People lost jobs, 35,000 jobs were lost in every sector. In the 5 years they were there, economic activity started dwindling in almost every sector of the economy. If you look at it, I don't want to go back through the details of that, but in mining, in forestry, almost every single area, you would see this. And that was it. They took away welfare from people, from the pensioners, from the children. They instituted hundreds of taxes and fees. That's their track record. Who would believe anything they say? So this is something that I want people to focus on. Just stop listening to the stupid noise that they make every week about the election stuff. The PPP does not have to rig this election to win it. We won it when we were in opposition, when they had everything. They controlled the army, they were in government, they spent $419.5 billion without a budget in place, because the last budget was passed in 2019, November, and we won the elections. Now, since we've gotten into office, our support has grown demonstrably, and they are a shadow of themselves. Nobody pays attention to what they say. So why would we need to get foreigners to come in here or try to rig the elections? We want free, fair elections within the constitutionally due time. They want to sidetrack from this, go down different routes that would knock us off that path. We don't want to delay the elections. They would like to see the elections delayed. And so all of these things they come up with, oh, new biometrics, let's restart house to house, knowing that will take about a year to do. If you just restart house to house activities for biometrics and then getting it into the system, etc. So don't pay too much attention to that issue. Whilst I'm on this, I noticed a very interesting editorial in the Starbuck News. It's called Melvina's Family. And the Starbuck News tried to make politics out of a tragedy. Now, this was a tragic issue where a number of people perished in a fire in Sophia. So the two ministers visited, Minister Ben and Minister Prasad visited. And then Starbuck News said in this article, oh, they should have visited before. Why are they going after? So clearly, they believe, and then in the same article, they use this tragedy to talk about cost of living. Half of the article is about cost of living. In an article, an editorial about Melvina's family, about cost of living, and again distorting what we have done on to abate cost of living increases in Guyana, pay no heed whatsoever to the massive sums that this government has spent on keeping the cost of living down. Unlike many other countries, they ignored it completely. Completely. The fact that electricity prices remain constant from 2020 to now, in spite of an increase in oil prices, the fact that water prices remain constant and even reduce, the fact that now every gallon of gas you buy, or diesel, there's a $500 Guyana subsidy to the consumer, the purchaser, for every gallon of gas you buy. That's why the rate is there. That mortgage rates have come down. All of these issues. How we have kept almost all the utilities either constant or lowered. Internet costs have come down in the 4 years. We've acknowledged that food prices, half of those are not under our control, so they move up and down. If you have an abundance of supply of greens in the market, you get lower prices. If it's scarce, it goes up. When there are higher procurement costs abroad, it goes up, but it comes down. Ignores that totally. So, and then speaks about a social security net, and says during the days of the PNC governance, deep structural adjustment had led to the formation of a social impact amelioration program. So for someone who doesn't know this, will think that in the days when we are bankrupt, when we were declared officially bankrupt as a country, uncreditworthy by the International Monetary Fund, uncreditworthy to borrow, where interest rates for mortgages were close to 40%. So if you wanted to, there were no housing program in the country in that era. Absolutely none. There was no Ministry of Housing. They had not been building houses for 15 years since maybe the death of, even before the death of Burnham. And none of that, there was no housing program, nothing. When inflation rate was triple digit, not single digit inflation, but could be over 100%. When the exchange rate was moving like in 1 year by maybe 50%. That was the era they're talking about, the structural adjustment program era. And so they're saying that somehow we're deficient now that we don't have a social impact program, but APNU had it in 1989. In 1989 and in 1990, apart from the fact that we were not, we didn't have any democracy here, the pension rate was about, in 1992, $2. It was about 200 per month. Per month. You can go back and check this. A pensioner used to collect about 260 something Guyana dollars per month. At that time, the exchange rate was 125 to 1. So it was $2 per month, but you didn't get it just like that. You had to go through a means test to see if you qualified for old age pension. Today, it's 36,000, and next year it will go to 41,000, $200 a month. That is, they don't think through these things. But guess what they're talking about? That this social impact amelioration program, CMAP, was to do community projects, to build a couple of community things and hand out some milk to people. Hand out some packages of milk or something like that. But then at that time, a public servant was earning $25 a month. That was the period you're talking about. So to think about today, where we have a significant increase in public assistance, pension, old age pension, for pensioners, a water subsidy, an electricity subsidy that APNU removed, all of these things. They go back into the 90s to bring up for the unsuspecting a period in our history that people may think was perfect. Oh, the PNC in those days introduced this social safety net. It was not a social safety net. It was not. At that time, we were bankrupt as a country. People couldn't borrow, they didn't have housing, they couldn't eat, they didn't have jobs, the public infrastructure was destroyed. We were paying more debt than we are collecting in revenue. And in an art, this is all done in an editorial talking about Melvina's family. Using this tragedy, a personal tragedy, to bring propaganda in about the government. Oh, that we are uncaring. So these two ministers, not the fact that they showed up at all, which was something, they visited out of sympathy, etc. They should have showed up before the fire. I don't know how you show up before the fire. And then two, suddenly cost of living. Some Parabati Sukai now in the article gets into this article on Melvina's family. And then this thing about the PNC days and how they had a great social safety net. It's all fake, false. Using tragedy to do this. And every day they do this. Every single day, this is something we have to fight off as the People's Progressive Party. As the People's Party. They don't, even when they know otherwise, they ignore it totally. No government in this region, including in the United States of America, has done as much as we have done to keep cost of living constant in this country, outside of food prices. No government. You show me any government that has done this. And I'll concede, with the massive subsidies we've done on electricity, on the excise tax for fuel and transport and everything else. No government has done in this period, in anywhere that I've seen, so much public infrastructure, not just the big roads, but in communities, changing people's lives. In the very Sophia that they're talking about, it says, Marcel, in Cummings Park, E-Field, Sophia, in the article. So it's in the very Sophia. Every road is being done now. An area that started as a squatting area, where APNU was trying to throw people off the land, throw them out. they didn't speak about that period. In the 5 years, they were trying to kick them off the land. You don't remember the period when there were dogs loosed on the people in Sophia by the PNC government when they started squatting there. And right now, we're building every single road. I got a couple days ago from Charles Ramson because we're fixing all of the grounds in there. So I'm keeping a watch in Georgetown. And this is what he sent to me. There's a ground in Sophia with the lights in now. The lights in here. So this is going to happen over all the other areas, all the other grounds in the city. So couldn't find anything positive about that. The massive investment. It's several billions of dollars now of road contracts in Sophia now. Almost $4 billion just in Sophia. But none of that, all of this get ignored in this editorial. And it starts off with these two ministers visiting. What sense did it make for the two ministers to visit after the fact? So they should have visited. They got to visit every family before a fire, and can predict when the fire will come, when they face a tragedy. It's ridiculous. You wouldn't have even had an APNU. They probably sent a cardboard cutout of a minister to go and visit them. But this is what we face every week. An attempt to distort. So on the cash grant, again, yesterday lots of questions. I saw an article in the Starbuck News, and it was accurate about what went on in the parliament. So there were several questions, and in this article, the questions were posed. But as you could see, the PM answered. In the very article, the PM answered all the questions about whether the 30.5 billion that we're seeking now will include admin costs. He said, no, these are absorbed elsewhere. Why only 30.5 now? He pointed out that we only have a month remaining for the end of the year. We have a budget that ends on the 31st of December. And if you appropriate money now and you don't use it, you have to, it lapses. You still have to go back and appropriate next year again. You can't keep the money into next year's budget. So he explained that clearly. He explained that we're working the need for registration, why we need to get people registered so that we don't have duplications or people double dipping. So that's why you need their picture ID too, so that when the checks are cut, that the people that we're giving the checks to the people who actually registered, that nobody else would come and collect their checks. We had already explained that it will take us about 5 months to complete the task. I explained right here. The president said we're trying to hurry this up to see if we can complete to get at least the public servants and the pensioners completed before the end of the year. We may be able to do that, and then a number of other people who are registered. The technical staff, this is done not by the politicians, by the technical unit. They said we can get about 300,000 persons registered before the end of the year. We can get those checks cut. They told me they can cut about maybe 20-something thousand checks per day in the Ministry of Finance. They built a system now to do that separately outside of the regular system, because if we had to use the same system that processes government accounts, it will take a long time. So it's heavily scrutinized with the Auditor General, a new system, they can cut these checks. So we anticipate that from what they told us, that they can do about 10,000 people per day, and therefore it would be about 300,000, including the ones they've done already. And therefore, they would cut the checks for those 300,000 persons. That's what it's anticipated will happen. And then we cannot appropriate the balance of the money until you have a budget. So the budget will come out in about February of next year. Well, hopefully it will pass by February of next year, not come out. And then we can seek to appropriate the balance of the money. We anticipate it will be about another 30 billion, because we think about 600,000 adults you have in the country, or just over that. You have a bit over that. But we will appropriate the rest of the sum in that period. In the meantime, the checks that have been cut in before the end of the year, because it's a huge task, those will be distributed to people in the period in December and January, outside of the public servants that they're trying hard, the public servants and pensioners, to get the checks in their hands before the end of the year. So it's not an easy task when you have to do this right across the country, and to make sure that the database is there. Once we get this database in place, in the future, if there are, and we anticipate in the future there will be similar grants in the future, that it will become easier, because you already have a database that in the system where you can easily then cut checks to those people, because they're real and they exist, and then they can come in. So in the future, it will be easier. So what I can say to Guyanese is that they will get it. Not everyone will get it before Christmas. A lot of people ask, oh, will I get it before Christmas? But I would say to people, then you still will get it. You will get it once you're 18 years and above. And it might come in good after the Christmas, because that's a low period too, you know. So you will get it. But please understand that this opposition will complain about everything. They complain about everything. Oh, first, they didn't want it done, they wanted it done, then don't give it to people abroad, then give it to them, then now, oh, you can't get it fast enough to people. We are not, and give them this, they will make a mess of it. Give them only for a region. You remember when they were distributing stuff, they were distributing, like Cathy Hughes had some of the LCDS grant to distribute. You should check the list of who got it. It was done in a partisan manner. Then they would have messed it up. They can't handle large-scale tasks. This is a large-scale task, because you have to register every citizen in the country. It's a major undertaking. But once we have that database, and it's verified database, then in future, it becomes easier. So now, if in another year we're paying out additional grants, then it will go to people. I see some comparisons have been made in the media between Suriname and Guyana, because I saw President Santoki announce that they will be getting a share in future royalty payments in Suriname. And so it's very different than what people are receiving here now in Guyana. So in Suriname, this is a royalty. They would have an IOU with like the residents, the citizens, from what I understand it to be, that it will come into being when they have first oil in 2028. That is when they expect first oil. So right now you're only getting a share worth $750. And then you will get a 7% annual payment on that. So you can calculate how much the annual payment will be. It's 50 something dollars, I think. 50 something dollars per annum. So that is what you will get. So I see a lot of people, I think it was a kite show news saying, oh, look, Suriname is giving out $750 US dollars now, and it's not, Guyana is only giving out 500. But that is not a cash payment. That's a share in future revenue starting from 2028, and you only get 7% of the $750 per year, dollars per year. So it's very, very different. I hope people don't, they get caught up in this, in a very misleading sort of propaganda there. So I want to urge people on the cash grant again that please get registered. Everyone will get it. Everyone will get it. It's just, it takes time. It takes time. You got to bear with us. And the technical staff are overloaded. These are the finance staff who are working. We are already preparing the budget for 2025. So we have to work at budget preparation for 2025. We have to work at registering everyone in the system and then effecting the payout at the same time. So it's the same people who are working on all of these matters. And the activity has to be carefully scrutinized. That's why the finance secretary is responsible. It has to be carefully scrutinized, the Auditor General, to see that we don't have anyone cheating the system. But the idea is that everyone should get this. I see also some questions have been raised in Stabroek about the loan, the Exim Bank, US Exim Bank. And the article points out correctly about the MOU that was signed by the Exim Bank with Barbados and St. Lucia. And that in Guyana's case, we had also signed an MOU for $2 billion with the Exim Bank. But in another part of the article, it says that Barbados has been given a loan, or it says in the meanwhile, a $500 million loan, which will cover energy renewables and other areas, has been granted to Barbados. No loan has been granted to Barbados. They would still have to go through the process that we are going through now, moving from an MOU to a loan. That means you have to go through a long process, due diligence, like we did on a lot of the projects. So their article is accurate in the sense that it points out that they signed the MOU. But then in another part, it says a loan has already been granted. And what no loan has been granted there. Let me tell you, for a few weeks now, we had this information, but we wanted the announcement to come from Exim Bank. But since it has not been forthcoming, let me say to you that the loan has been approved by the board of Exim Bank, and it has been sent to the Congress for 30 days notification, after which it will be returned to the board of the Exim Bank for final approval. So that is where we stand at this point in time. There are lots of issues. I have here a long list of issues but they all relate to the elections. And I'm not going to detail them that APNU came up with. Just that that they're very, I find it very disgusting. Okay, let me just come back. I missed one point on this Malvinas thing. Malvinas thing, it's important for us to look at how a story, a tragedy could be used to score political points that have nothing to do with the tragedy itself. So in the same article it says, this is a fourth thing, one would hope that as he presided over Wednesday's lavish state banquet for Prime Minister Modi, that President Ali was at least cogitating over how these impoverished families would assist in a structured manner. Yes, it did. So we've been targeting people to come out of poverty. That is why we're finding jobs so more people are working. We're working every day to create jobs. We put in place the part-time job program. We're subsidizing low-income housing so they have assets, and there are tens of thousands of Guyanese who are benefiting from this subsidized housing. That is why we're making education free, so people don't have to pay for education, so they can come out of poverty with a good education. It's more structural. That's why we're improving healthcare, and at an international level, that would be free by building these new hospitals so that people are not denied the best quality healthcare because of their financial status. It's more structured and thoughtful. It is not just handing out a grant all the time. It's structured and thoughtful. But to talk about this lavish state dinner for Prime Minister Modi, now this is a normal thing. I pointed out last week that India is a major power. President Modi being here, this is a country that has landed, one of the few countries that have landed a craft on the moon, and the first country in the world to land on the moon, on the southern side of the moon, which is more difficult to do. First country in the world. This is not like a small country. And if you begrudge the vegetarian state dinner that we had, so it wasn't a lavish thing with, you remember Harman and the others with the snow crab that they imported, and stone crab and everything else that they imported from abroad. This was a vegetarian dinner. In fact, many people are now very happy because they had to, like the non-veg, they went and ate elsewhere afterwards. I ate some chicken when I went home. I must say, that was normal, because you begrudge the lavish banquet, state banquet. It's a vegetarian dinner, mainly cooking things that we produce here. Was no lavish state banquet, and we had a lot of Guyanese who were performing and stuff like that. It was a great performance by young people and by older people, showcasing our culture, the broad culture of Ghana, the multi-ethnic nature of the culture. The coverage we got from that alone in India is invaluable. You can't pay for that. If you had to pay for that, like you had to hire somebody to do the PR, You pay millions of dollars for this. Because when a person like Prime Minister Modi comes or travels, he travels with the Indian media, but also the world's media would follow his visit. And Guyana got mentioned everywhere in the entire global news cycle. So in this one story, all the grievances they have, it's like sour people. They complain about everything under the government, under the guise of helping Malvina's family. This is low life writing. So I reinforce that. Last week I said already that if I see APNU saying to people, don't, some of them, not all, because the mainstream APNU is getting registered, they're all getting registered for the money. But some of the French said to people, don't register. Well, if you want to be stupid and follow the French, don't get registered, you wouldn't collect your 100,000. It's as simple as that. If you want to follow the lunatic French, because we want to take your data and keep it in the bowels of Freedom House. I don't know what we'll do with it. You know? Anyhow, thank you. Yes.
Mr. Jagdeo, then Ishmael Damrawi. Sir, just a clarification on the U.S. Exim Bank's decision. Can you say, sir, first of all, whether it will be for the same amount of money that we've applied for, and also, given the fact that the Guyana government has been plowing in some of its own resources, what will be the extra money, so to speak, be used for? And secondly, as General Secretary of the PPP and as Vice President of Guyana, in light of the claims being made by Melissa Atwell, do you still have absolute and total confidence in Mr. Nandalal as both AG and as an executive committee and central committee member of your party? And thirdly, I will leave it there for today. To what extent is it appropriate for the police force, top brass, to not have held any press conference for 2 years when there have been abductions, high-profile armed robberies, and other violent crimes?
And okay, so the first question is the amount. No, the amount will not be $260 million. It will be less than that, and it will only cover exports out of the United States of America. So it would be upwards of $500 million. Upwards of $500 million. Huh? No, not the full sum. The loan will also provide retroactive financing. So if the loan is made available, it will cover financing that the government of Guyana had to make during the period since the project started. So that's in relation to the two issues that you raised. I don't deal with the police force routinely, only if there is an issue that involves, like someone comes to complain about issues in the police force, etc., or discrimination or anything of that sort. I try to address that. And I don't know what reason, if this was a routine press conference that they used to hold in the past, I can't imagine why they would not do it. And so I'm going to find out why they've not held a press conference to address concerns in the media, because I think they have a great story to tell about all the changes that we've been making. And I think they do need to tell that story about the growth in capability of the police force, the massive investments in training and tools available to the police to better conduct their work. They should talk a bit more about the growth in the capability of the police force as it relates to technology in the use and to fight crime, particularly cameras and the command centers and how this feeds into their crime fighting activities. They should talk a bit more about their capabilities to investigate and solve crimes through the forensic lab that is operational. They have a lot to speak of. And in spite of what you mentioned about the cases that they've had a few cases of kidnapping and maybe some other violent crime, I think they have done a fairly decent job. They can talk about traffic and what we're doing too, because that's a sore point now in the country. It's becoming a major issue about the use of the roads and the callous way that people have been using the roads, many people, and the need for stronger enforcement. The laws are there, but we need to have stronger enforcement. But they should be able to tell the public through a press conference what they're doing and how they hope to tackle this, particularly with these trucks on the road, and how they're ensuring that the people who are driving these trucks, that they are properly trained and they don't, even if some of them are foreign nationals, I gather some are foreign nationals who are being brought by some companies who have large contracts here to work. So they should be properly trained to use our roads. They should all of these things can be dealt with there. So I don't see any reason why they should not be doing this, but I'll find out why. And on the issue of these allegations, I don't pay too much attention to unverified allegations. I myself have been subjected to this for years. For the past 20 years, I've had to fight off all sorts of things. Or I led a government that used to, that's what they said, to exterminate young Afro-Guyanese men. Up to now, you heard what I started my press conference. They persist in telling that lie until now. 2, that I own the Marriott. Up to recently, that's been in the newspaper. 3, that I owned an aircraft, one of these commercial airlines. 4, I practically own everything in this country. It has been a long haul for me. So when I get verified info, and we have our means of verifying information too, that's when we act on them. But so far, I've not dealt with any unverified information. There's no way of proving these matters. If they're solid proof, that's a different matter. But as of now, Anil Nandalal enjoys my confidence as General Secretary of the party.
Marcel Thomas, the Starbrook News. I'm following up on the Exim Bank
Yes,
approval.
yes, Marcel.
Is that date from the 21st of November when they had that last board meeting? Was it approved then? Because you spoke about the 30-day.
Yes, yes.
So the
I
30
think
days
it's that
starts
day,
from
yeah.
then
Mhm, mhm.
for congressional approval. And
Notification.
2, if you can please provide an update on the Marriott Hotel. You just spoke about that, and that came back to mind.
I have not. I can find out, but I don't know where NISIL is with that, whether they continue the negotiations with the second rank bidder or not. So I can find out, Marcel, and get that information to you, whether they are engaging the second rank bidder or not.
And the
From
last,
what I gathered, if my memory serves me correct, they had a bid in for something like 89 million, and the other one was for 90 odd million.
but are we still actively pursuing?
I don't know if they're having discussions. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
And the last thing was to have an explanation on something you said last week with regards to ExxonMobil and the carbon capture giving back also. If you could provide a bit more information and clarity, because I didn't quite.
So
Get rid
I
of it.
was notified by Vikram Bharrat, the minister, that they had indicated that they would walk away from it because the conditions were not right. So since my public statement, Exxon has written to us that saying that that might not be the full story, that they still have some interest in it. So from last week to now, after my press conference, and I verified it with Vikram Bharat, that was said in a meeting, and they said that there might have been a misunderstanding, that they have not walked away from it. So let's see how it goes.
Dr. Jagdeo, Cordell Jones from Livewire News. I have one question in 2 parts to you. Now, Joel Bagwadin had suggested that the legal strategies employed by Nigel Hughes during the 2018 no confidence motion may have provided ExxonMobil, who we now know Nigel Hughes works for, with the opportunity to fast-track production and thereby locking in the 2016 agreement. Would you agree with this? And the second part, if production had not taken the fast track like they did, do you believe the current administration would be in a better position to renegotiate the 2016 agreement?
We can't ascribe to Nigel Hughes anything of major consequence. I think it was very unethical of the APNU AFC government to allow Raphael Trotman to sign an agreement contrary to the advice of all of the technical persons, and then to approve the agreement based on a cabinet paper that ExxonMobil prepared. Just think about this for a moment. And this is their own assessment of what took place that I'm quoting from. They had hired a company called, I think it's Clyde and Company, to do a report on the process that that unfolded before or leading up to the signing of the agreement. And the conclusion from that company in the UK is that ExxonMobil prepared the draft of the agreement that went to cabinet. How could you ever, representing a country, allow the company to prepare a cabinet paper for you that will approve the contract that they want? And people miss that point. It's there in black and white. Go and read the report. It is an abdication of their responsibility to the people of this country. And in another part of the world, maybe they would have been charged for malfeasance in public office. But they could have never, ever, definitely in another part of the world where the media operates in a probing manner, they would have never been able to talk anything about oil and gas anymore. Not Vincent Adams, not Patterson, not Trotman, not Nigel Hughes, not any of them with that track record. People ignore that little point. They understand the fact that the agreement was a bad one. It was a bad one. And we said so in opposition, and we said what were the elements that we considered should be changed, and we changed those in a new PSA, in a new draft, the PSA that we've announced. The second thing is that, was Nigel Hughes motivated by anything except in my view, it was just the job and the money from ExxonMobil. Was he motivated by national interest? And we're still to answer this question. How come a chairman of the party, one party, could be working for ExxonMobil? And I think the leader at that time of the party, who was the minister, could be the one signing an agreement. These are two individuals from the same party. So Nigel Hughes has not denied that he was in 2016 that he was working for ExxonMobil. In fact, the agreement, the 2016 agreement, listed his office as the office for the local company. And what happened, he resigned from that position, the chairman. Clearly they knew that this was a conflict of interest position. So resigned just before the agreement, they started formal negotiation of the agreement. But before that, they had a lot of informal discussions on the agreement, long before his resignation. So there was informal discussion between ExxonMobil and the ministry. So I don't think Nigel Hughes, the no confidence motion, had anything to do with the forest oil. The agreement was a good agreement, and the ExxonMobil realized, as they do now, that apart from the quality of our crude, which is sweet crude, it was, and the cost of production is relatively low, that they had a great agreement to make good money here, and therefore they accelerated their program. So I think the no confidence motion and his position on the no confidence motion, they were all designed to keep the APNU in office for a longer period. And it was all part of their, it's not uncharacteristic of them to try to violate the Constitution or to use legal means to hang on illegally to power. This has come out of the DNA of the AFC and APNU. So it was just a natural instinct to them. In the night of the no confidence motion, I spoke of that last week, they accepted that the government had fallen and that according to the Constitution, you have to go to elections in 3 months. And then they started this big thing about 33 and 34, and up to today in court he was trying to prove that point. Still, something that is commonsensical. As I said before, the judges in the CCJ wiped the floor with that argument and Nigel Hughes and all of them. So I don't believe there is a strong connection between the two. But because they were going to face the fact that ExxonMobil came to Ghana under the PPP. It was in 1999 that Janet Jagan signed that agreement, and then throughout my entire tenure, when we started exploring and Suriname intervened with a gunboat, that we had to get the border settled with Suriname. And that took me several years to get the border settled through the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And we had, for the first time in nearly 100 years, another demarcated border. And then the force majeure was lifted, and that's how exploration resumed. And once exploration had resumed, we knew that there was oil in Ghana. The U.S. Geological Survey long before that said that there was lots of oil in Ghana. It's just a matter of time before we found the oil. And they found the oil just before we demitted office. But then they went and made a mess of the agreement. And so what was the second part?
If Exxon hadn't gone to or fast-track production, and we had the elections in 2020 without...
Oh yeah, but we are in favor of producing. I said this before. I think so I don't see that. The harm was done when the agreement was signed. That was when the harm was done. But thereafter, you have to move forward in producing.
From the point of Vincent Adams suggesting that government take the first step, but we've had explanations why government hasn't moved to renegotiate.
Vincent Adams, yeah, I see back when they didn't have him in big trouble. They can't answer straightforward questions. I saw somebody sent me, and he said he's known for frankly expressing his views, but he couldn't frankly express his views about Nigel Hughes' conflict of interest. Refused to express his view. So I don't pay too much attention to these political acts. Imagine it's all a big show for them. So they're training their own members, training on oil and gas. And they make a big publicity about it. And they said, only our members can come into the link. If you're doing your internal trading, do it. They're doing it for the show of it. For the show of it. It's nothing that they could train their members on. They may want to train them on integrity and not lying to the people of the country. That's what the AFC needs training on. Integrity in public office. That was demonstrated that they don't have.
Good afternoon, Vice President. Anasa Williams, Culture News. Just two quick questions. Firstly, sir, given that windfall taxes are not a breach of the PSA as they do not impact the contractor's expected revenue, can you say why is government not implementing this mechanism to secure a fair share of excess profits for Guyanese? And secondly, I think the last update you gave us about the oil spill legislation that was supposed to be tabled is that it was still on the agenda. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we're going through this. The technical agencies have given their views. We sent it up back to the consultant. We're waiting on a final draft incorporating those additional views, and then we will have a discussion at the level of the cabinet, and then hopefully we'll get it to the parliament before the end of the year. It's still my hope to table before the end of the year. The second issue, I've dealt with windfall profits in the past and why we believe that windfall taxation it should not be pursued at this time. I dealt with it in the past, if you go back and read.
Mr. Jagdeo, can you say what is the status of the arrangement or agreement with Fulcrum? We're seeing in some international reports that they really don't have the resources to do what they say they would want to do. Where does that leave the project?
No, but I don't know about the international reports and what they don't have. I can tell you the process through which we went and what we know as of this moment. So first of all, we made it clear to the public that we wanted to monetize the gas. We noted that Exxon was reluctant to do so, arguing that this is associated gas and they need to re-inject the gas to keep the quality of the wells up. We argued that we believe that they can do so and yet find enough gas to generate a project, a major project that would result in a financial stream, additional financial stream to the people of Guyana. We believe that to be so largely because of the world accepting today that gas has to be the transitional fuel. So we don't have all of the technical capabilities in the government to move such a project along. We went out through an RFP to select a company that we believe that has the technical capability to, in discussions, work with Exxon through a tripartite arrangement, government, company, and Exxon, to determine whether such a project would be feasible and to determine what would be the key elements of that project. Public tender was issued. Technical evaluators evaluated on the basis of the tender submitted, and they scored Fulcrum ahead of others. Fulcrum argued that they had access to financing, and secondly, that there are several large companies associated with their proposal. They were selected. Is it unusual to go to a startup for gas ventures? If you Google the United States and fracking, you will see that most of the projects, the fracking projects that were developed, that became big, were through startups. And so it's their ability to string together a project with the technical capability and the financing that would at some stage be tested, because right now they're still in discussion or would be having discussions on whether such a project is feasible and then what would be the elements. So there are several. First of all, the market. We have indicated that we're open to any configuration, whether to have a floating platform for LNG, to export LNG, to bring the gas onshore for industrial purposes. That could be a whole range of factories, like fertilizer and other things. Or to bring the gas onshore to generate power for export into Brazil, because Brazil needs a large amount of power. So those are the potentially three areas of demand. They have to decide, first of all, the availability of the gas and then the numbers. And at that stage, then it will be tested. So that's where we are at this stage. We went through an open, transparent process. And this is not so unusual when you look at startup in the US and the history of startups. So I don't know where the big issue is.
So this.
Huh? No. We are not worried at this stage, because we're still defining the project. It may very well end up that there is no project or it's not feasible. And then if that's the case, that Exxon argues that, then we may decide we already started talking to Suriname, because there's some gas fields that Exxon has that we may be able to work jointly with Suriname to link with their situation. They have more gas in their gas fields. They're close to our border. Maybe do a joint project. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket.
Why is it that the government did not go for the full 660 in the Exim loan?
Oh, because as I said before, Exim would go through expenditures that are related to the US imports.
I have the mic. There's a lot of concerns about procurement and whether the right people with the right know-how are getting contracts. Why not amend the legislation to provide for opposition and probably civil society participation in the board, so it removes suspicion and everyone will be able to see clearly what's going on with the decisions?
Dennis, you show me, we live in a democracy. You think President Trump will put anyone in discharge of his executive function, that he has to answer to the people of the country for, that he put someone there who has had a track record of being negative and disruptive and try to slow things down rather than be supportive in any of his agenda? It is something that we will never contemplate until there is a change in the culture of the opposition parties. Here, their entire history has been focused on the disruption. If they're in government, they stay in power through trying to steal elections, not through the respect of the right of individual voters. And when they're out of government, they try to disrupt everything. A seemingly normal thing would now take forever. So you mentioned about the right people being involved. APNU was doing 100th of what we're doing. And I say this not with any, not that I'm exaggerating. Actually 100th of what we're doing. And you still had charges of corruption. You had charges of mismanagement. In fact, not charges. We've demonstrated this. I can go down the long list. I'm not going to do it again. I've done it at other press conferences. We are stretched to the limit. We're stretched to the limit. Can you imagine? This is what I was saying to people. In a country that came out of COVID, we are now where there was no plan to build a new hospital left by the opposition. To get now to building 12 new hospitals. The president just came back from Morocco and he turned his south here. 12 new major hospitals that are under construction and that will be completed. Most of those completed, 6 of those would be completed in the tenure of this government, the 5 years, although we lost the first 2 years to COVID. Can you imagine that? Not even on the drawing boards, these plans were there. And we have done that. So I'm not going to go through many things. That's happening. Do you know of how it has stretched our technical capability? We have had to do feasibility studies. We had to raise the money. We had to sign the loans if some were done by loans. We had to now get the designs done, contract, all of that, and got them to the stage of building. That's one. On bridges, nothing again there. Right now, we've awarded nearly 200 and something bridges in the country. All the bridges in Region 6 to widen the road here. 45 of the 46 bridges going to let them. The bridge across the 4-lane bridge across the river at Wisma, another 4-lane bridge here that you see the construction going. They were not on the drawing card. We did it and they're under construction now. So they will come and complain, oh, it would be delayed a bit. Yes, some things would be delayed, but it's happening. Happening. And it's the same technical capability that we're using now, and it's happening now. We have done over 3,000 community roads by bringing in small contractors. You see how many. Linden, we did the roads in Linden recently, Edgehill and the others. I couldn't make it up there. They went there in the PM. It's over 300 contractors got those roads from Linden, from Region 10. They're all, how many regional contractors got it work under APNU? 300 contractors got work in over $4 billion of work in Region 10 just last week, because we did it in a manner that would allow small people to get work so they can grow. And it happened with the same capability. This is what's going on. The 4-lane highways, if you go up the East Bank, it's unrecognizable on the way to Diamond. Where you didn't have anything there before, it's unrecognizable. We're doing that, we're doing the East Coast one, we did a Crane one, we're doing Berbice 4-lane road. And you're telling me, I would listen to my Paul talking nonsense, even the pumps, we may have delay, but I pointed out that we are now putting in 60 new, through a World Bank loan, 60 cokers we're rehabilitating. We're putting in 39 fixed pumps in 19 pumping the stations. We're buying another 40 mobile pumps. We're building several Hope-like canals around the country so that you can take the water from the backland directly into the Atlantic. All of this is ongoing. If we had waited on everybody who built pump stations in Guyana, we had 2 companies that did that successfully in the past. It will take about 10 years to get the 19 built. So we had to nurture it along because people don't have the capacity. We understand that they may not have the full capacity, but you can't wait forever. I can list, Dennis, I can list 100 things that this government has got off, and I made it clear also. You can see it transparently put on all the NPTAB website. You go there and you see who the contractors are who got this work. You may disagree, maybe charges, etc., but this is what has happened in these years. And it's not only that. If I go down the long list, housing, you know how many contractors we've had to work there too? We have had to supervise them. It's 38,000 house lots that have been given out, that have been developed. We're putting in roads, electricity, etc. We're running now we're just going to award a contract, and we already started maybe about 75 kilometers of high power transmission lines. We're going with a gas to energy project. That will be delayed a bit. But so what? It's going to be delayed. Yes, we're not unhappy about it. But at least we're getting stuff going. We're getting stuff going. You think if, with the attitude they have, if we put them on a committee, they don't even read. They didn't read the Amila Fall project. But Patterson to go into Parliament now, this year, and lie to say that Amila Falls, the power is coming in at 30 cents per kilowatt hour. It just shows you how negative they are. Negative. They're opposed to everything. You think we'll bring them in to stymie on this board, to stymie everything that happen? Where and which country does it? You ask in the English-speaking Caribbean, where are they?
Could you have the rules in such a way that even though they're participating in the deliberations, that ultimately it will be the government side will make the decision, but they'll be aware what is going on.
But the thing is that they can be aware. At least we put up the information so they are aware. Now, at the MPTAB website, you have all the information up. They're aware. That's where they get the information. You check in the 5 years they were there, whether there was any information up. That's when we were in the dark. That's when we're in the dark. But my point is that you have the constitutional bodies. That's where they should be. They're on the PPC, and the PPC has a constitutional role. When you're in the executive, at the end of the day, when you go to the voter and you say to the voter, I promise you to fix the road before the elections. This is my promise. And you know, we want it to satisfy APNU. So we brought them in and they blocked the road. You think people would say, they'd say, you know, I don't want to say what they would say to us. You think that's what we'd say to them? We made promises to the people of this country. We're going to keep our promises. We're going to keep our promises. And you want us to do in this country what not done anywhere in the world. But with this opposition, that's technically not even capable. They don't have any experience in. Look at the Maipals and stuff, junior clerk in these ministries. They just find one issue and they run after it the whole day, and they miss the big picture all the time. They miss the big picture. Look at the large numbers of what's happening. You know, first it was young black contractors can't get any work. Nigel Lewis was saying. He went and said, oh, we are doing the roads in one community and we're not doing. I'll lie again. And it's not true. If you go to Sophia, you see all the roads, or Linda, being done. So they just thrive on lies. This is a negative opposition. They will stymie everything you do. So we are inclusive. We wanna work with the opposition in the future if they change their culture. But this blocking things every day where they bring benefit for people will not fly with us. It can't fly with us. We're elected to deliver to people. And it's a hard task.
Last, you were tasked earlier this year with looking for money for the CARICOM Development Fund. Have you found any money?
So we've had, I don't want to hear about it until the report goes to heads, but I had some engagements and I spoke with Prime Minister Motley when she was here for the meeting with Prime Minister Modi. So right now, I will give my report to the heads first. No, we have a number of ideas how resources could be mobilized for the region. We have a number of ideas. Yes, go ahead.
Luan Williams, DPI. Sir, are salary increases for public servants still being considered?
Yes, salary increases would be, every public servant will get a salary increase.
Thank you.
All right, and it will be before the end of the year too. So most likely it will be in their December pay package and it will be retroactive to January 1. So public servants will get a salary increase.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shania Harding, Guyana Chronicle. We know that Guyana was recently recognized at COP29, but my question is, there was a movement to establish a global architecture for carbon markets. Can you say what this means for Guyana?
Yes, so this was Article 6. And we're pleased that there was some movement forward in Article 6. So we see it as an entirely positive development. However, the agreement that they emerged from the Conference of Parties meeting with doesn't live up to the goal of keeping our world on a sustainable trajectory. And so we're very disappointed that that is going to happen. For us in Guyana, if anything that works at market development for particularly as they relate to forests and biodiversity credits, then it's something that we will be supportive of. We hope that there are safeguards, though, that there are safeguards in these markets that would not allow low quality carbon to enter into these markets, that would dilute the product and ultimately can lead to a collapse of prices. Because that is what we have seen happen in some markets. And so certification is a vital part of ensuring the quality of forest carbon remains high. And therefore, we hope that there would be credible organizations that would certify the carbon before it enters into the market. Because if any country can just put any product into the market, then it will undermine the market itself. In our case, you know, we go through the R3's certification process, which is a robust certification process. And so that's why our carbon is of such high quality.
Question.
Carbon credits.
Also, what are your thoughts on the new global finance target?
Oh, that is, a lot of countries were disappointed, and I think it was just put together to reach an agreement, and from what I gather, it was forced through at the end. And it is something that we have had major issues with. When Obama came to Copenhagen and the $100 billion was agreed, so that's 100 billion by 2020. it was our distinct impression that this would all be in grant resources and it will be incremental to ODA, Official Development Assistance. So it would not be a diversion of ODA, but it would be incremental to ODA and also grant resources. Until now, those pledges have not been fully met, and a significant part of what they count as a contribution to that pledge, their $100 billion pledge, is in loans to these countries that often don't have the capability to acquire these loans because they're already debt stressed and fiscally stressed. And so, again, this target of 300 billion going up to when what is needed is 1.3 trillion dollars. I believe it's just done there and inserted in the document, because it didn't come out of each country apportioning how much they will pledge and in what form. And with the U.S. administration, now the new U.S. administration, I'm not even sure that they will contribute to that pledge. So I think it was done just to say that we have a new target, and maybe that's good in a way, but clearly it's not, both from the ambition perspective in terms of emission cuts and from the availability of financing to support the developing world to get onto that trajectory, a sustainable trajectory. The agreement fell short on both counts. Anything else? If not, thank you.